Welcome, spicy ladies. When you choose to think for yourself, you stop being part of the system. You start challenging it. Sigas aren't loud. They're not flashy. They don't need a crowd or a stage to know their worth. And yet, they draw attention. Not the kind that claps, but the kind that watches, questions, and sometimes attacks. Why? Because Sigas don't follow the usual rules. They don't need validation to feel valuable. They don't move with the herd. They move with intention. That's why they're targeted. People don't know what to do with someone they can't manipulate, predict, or label. Most systems, schools, jobs, families, even friendships run on silent agreements. Stay in line. Play your part. Don't ask too many questions. Sigas break those agreements without even trying. Not to cause trouble, but because they value truth over comfort and freedom over fitting in. They aren't trying to be rebellious. They're just wired to think deeper and move differently. That bothers people who rely on control, who need to be followed, or who are terrified of being seen for who they really are. As Sigma's presence can feel like a mirror reflecting everything fake back at the world. So, if you've ever felt targeted, misunderstood, or labeled just for being real, understand this. It means you're not bendable. It means your mind is awake, your soul is solid, and your path is your own. You're not the problem. You're the reminder that not everyone can be bought, broken, or boxed in. And that reminder scares people. Let's dive into the spicy ladies. Number 1, they are harder to read than most. Most people wear their emotions like a name tag. You can tell what they're thinking, how they feel, what they want, all without them saying a word. But a Sigma female, she is different. You can't read her like a headline. She gives you almost nothing to work with, and that alone drives people crazy. She could be in a conversation, nodding along, listening closely, but you still have no idea what's really going on in her head. And that's exactly why people feel unsettled around her, because we're used to decoding facial expressions, tone of voice, subtle hints. But with her, there are no hints, no extra pieces to the puzzle, just calm, collected silence that leaves people spinning their wheels trying to guess where they stand. People like to feel in control, even if it's just by assuming they understand someone. But when they can't pin her down, that control slips through their fingers. She doesn't hand over emotions for comfort. She doesn't overshare or play predictable games that make her feel untouchable. And untouchable is often misunderstood as cold or distant. Here's the twist. She's not hiding who she is. She's just not performing for others. If she's hurt, she deals with it in private. If she's happy, she doesn't need to parade it. That quiet confidence, that's what makes her magnetic. But it also makes her a threat. Think about it like this. Ever been in a room with someone who isn't loud, isn't dramatic, but somehow holds all the power? That's her. You feel drawn in, but you're not sure why. It's frustrating to some. They want a clear read, a label, a handle they can grab onto, and when they can't get it, they project. They label her intimidating or too much just to feel better about not being able to understand her. But here's the truth. Not everything powerful needs to be explained. Some forces are meant to be felt. Right now, if you are still watching, I hope this video can help you. Your comments motivate me so much, so I can make more videos which you like. So hit that subscribe button and leave me a message. Let's continue. Number 2, she's uninterested in controlling others, but can't be controlled. Most people don't realize how much of life is built around control. It shows up in the way people talk to each other, in the way they compete, even in the way they give compliments. There's always someone trying to lead the conversation, steer the mood, or influence someone else's choices. These little power plays happen every day, and most folks play along without even thinking about it. But a Sigma female, she sees it for what it is and she opts out. She's not interested in controlling anyone. She's not trying to be the alpha in the room or the one everyone follows. She doesn't need that kind of validation. But here's where it gets interesting. While she doesn't try to control people, she also cannot be controlled. And that combination is rare. Very rare. People don't know what to do with someone like that. If you're not trying to rise to the top, they expect you to fall in line. But the Sigma female does neither. She walks her own way on her own terms and doesn't care if she's misunderstood. That shakes people, especially those who thrive on influence or feed off obedience. Imagine a workplace where the manager expects everyone to say yes and follow without question. The Sigma female won't start a rebellion, but she also won't nod just to keep the peace. She'll listen, think, and do what aligns with her values, even if it's unpopular. That calm resistance feels like defiance. Even though she's not trying to challenge anyone, she's just being honest. That alone is enough to make people feel like their grip is slipping. And that's the truth most people miss. It's not about being difficult. It's about being independent. She doesn't need to lead, and she'll never follow blindly. That's why both the loudest leaders and the quietest followers find her unsettling, because she plays no part in their game and still somehow wins. Number 3, she holds her own secrets too well. People are naturally curious. They want to know what makes someone tick, what's going on behind the scenes, what's really happening underneath the surface. And with most people, all it takes is a little time and a few questions to get there. But with a Sigma female, good luck. She is a vault. You could spend hours around her, laugh with her, even share your own secrets, and still walk away knowing next to nothing about what's going on in her personal world. Not because she's hiding, but because she doesn't feel the need to open every door just to make others feel comfortable. Her privacy isn't a defense mechanism. It's her way of life. This drives some people absolutely crazy, especially the ones who are used to having easy access to others. The ones who believe they deserve to know everything just because they're close or because they're in some kind of relationship with her. But a Sigma female draws that line. She decides what to share, when to share it, and with whom. No pressure moves her. No guilt-tripping works. Think about it. You ask her how she's doing. She smiles and says, "I'm good." That's it. No long explanation, no dramatic breakdown, just peace. And that's where people start getting uncomfortable, because they can't read between the lines. There's no hidden meaning, just a simple boundary they didn't expect. People who love to control others find her especially frustrating. They don't know how to pull her strings, because she has none. She doesn't overshare when she's anxious. She doesn't confess to seek sympathy. And she doesn't drop breadcrumbs for attention. If she's going through something, she carries it quietly, handles it, and moves on. And that makes her powerful in a way few people understand. Because when you hold your secrets without shame or fear, you also hold your peace. And that kind of emotional control is rare and deeply threatening to those who rely on access to feel important. Number 4, they're unbribable. That's not just a trait. That's a problem for a world built on transactions where most people have a price. Whether it's money, praise, social status, or being liked. But a Sigma, you can't bribe them with compliments. You can't buy their attention with flashy things. And you definitely can't win them over with fake smiles and shallow rewards. They see through that. And it's not that they don't appreciate kind words or success. They just don't depend on them. They know how dangerous it is to let the outside world control your self-worth. That's why people with power feel uncomfortable around them. Let's say you have a boss who throws around titles and bonuses just to keep people loyal. Everyone scrambles to please him. But then there's this one guy, the Sigma, who doesn't care about the title, doesn't fake small talk, and just focuses on doing excellent work. No drama, no begging for attention. That boss will either respect him deeply or try to get rid of him, because you can't control someone who doesn't want what you're offering. Same thing in relationships. Imagine someone tries to use guilt or compliments to bend a Sigma's boundaries. It won't work. A Sigma doesn't stay for comfort or flattery. They stay when it's real. That kind of emotional independence feels threatening to people who rely on being needed or adored to feel important. So what do? They label the Sigma as cold, arrogant, or too much. But those are just words people use when they can't pull your strings. Being unbribable means you answer to your own compass. It means you value truth over praise and peace over popularity. And in a world that runs on approval, that's rare. It's also powerful. And if that makes some people uncomfortable, good. You're doing something right. Number 5, their mind is a weapon they don't flaunt. And that's exactly what makes it dangerous. Sigas are the type of people who can read a situation without saying a word. They pick up on the little things, what's being said, what's not being said, and what's being carefully avoided. They don't show off their intelligence because they don't need to. They're not in a competition. They're observing, processing, connecting dots silently while everyone else is busy trying to prove a point. And that's when things get uncomfortable, because eventually people start noticing. Maybe the Sigma doesn't talk much during meetings, but when they do, what they say cuts straight to the truth. It makes others feel like their whole performance was just smoke and mirrors. That quiet clarity exposes the overthinkers, the talkers, the ones who rely on charm instead of substance. Take this example. Imagine you're in a group project and there's always one person trying to lead with loud ideas, talking in circles, trying to impress everyone. The Sigma sits back, listens, and then calmly points out the real problem no one noticed and how to fix it. Suddenly, that loud leader feels small. Not because the Sigma meant to embarrass anyone, but because truth doesn't need volume to shake a room. That's when envy shows up. People start calling them a know-it-all. Even when they didn't say much, they twist it into arrogance when it was just clarity. Why? Because deep down, people know the Sigma saw through everything. And being seen that clearly can feel like a threat to those still pretending. Sigas don't use their mind to dominate. They use it to navigate. But in a world where most people shout to be heard, someone who speaks with precision and only when necessary will always make others uncomfortable. That's the power of silent intelligence. It doesn't seek attention. It commands respect without asking for it. Number 6, they are everything people pretend to be. And that's where the tension begins. Sigas don't walk around trying to prove anything. They don't have a polished script or a fake version of themselves for every crowd. They just are raw, honest, unfiltered. And that kind of authenticity doesn't need an announcement. It's felt, and it makes people nervous. See, most people are performing without even realizing it. They carefully choose their words to sound smart, or what's trending to look relevant, follow opinions just to fit in. It's exhausting, but they do it because that's what they think survival looks like. Then a Sigma shows up. Someone who doesn't ask for attention, doesn't join every conversation, doesn't follow the crowd just to belong. But somehow their presence still lands heavier than the ones trying so hard to be seen. That's when the comparisons start quietly in people's minds. Why do they seem so confident without trying? Why does it bother me that they're not impressed by anything? Why do I feel fake around them? It's not what Sigas do. It's what they don't do that reveals the cracks in everyone else's mask. Picture a group of friends where everyone's bragging about achievements, new purchases, or status updates. The Sigma is sitting there, not reacting, not adding to the noise. Suddenly, everyone feels like they're talking too loud, reaching too far, pretending too much. It's not the Sigma who says anything wrong. It's just that their quiet honesty makes the performance around them obvious. And people hate being reminded of their own act. That's why Sigas get labeled as intimidating or too much. But let's call it what it really is. Authenticity is rare, and rare things shake people. When you live without pretense, you expose the world for what it really is. And that truth, it's uncomfortable, but it's also powerful. Number 7, they see what's not being said. And that's what unsettles people the most. While the world gets caught up in noise, words, titles, loud opinions, Sigas are tuned into something deeper. They don't just hear what you're saying, they hear what you're avoiding. They notice what you're not saying, how your tone doesn't match your words, how your body language hesitates at the wrong time. They're not psychic. They're just deeply awake. Most people get by wearing masks. They say the right things, smile when expected, play along with whatever version of themselves is most convenient. But a Sigma isn't distracted by surface-level charm. They notice the gap between your words and your truth. And once they see it, they can't unsee it. Let's say someone's telling a story about how happy they are in their job. They're smiling, talking fast, name-dropping accomplishments. But the Sigma catches the flicker in their eyes, the nervous laughter, the subtle hesitation in their tone. It's not judgment, it's observation. Sigas see the pattern, and patterns never lie. That level of insight makes people feel exposed. This is why Sigas are often met with discomfort. Even when they're being completely calm and kind, people feel uneasy around them. Why? Because being around someone who sees through the performance forces you to confront things you're trying to bury. And here's the wild part. Sigas rarely confront anyone directly. They don't need to. Their presence alone feels like a spotlight on your truth. No words necessary. Just that quiet awareness sitting across from you, seeing what you thought you'd hidden. That kind of clarity can feel invasive to people who live behind filters. But to the Sigma, it's not a power move. It's just how they're built. They're not looking for lies. They just can't unsee the truth. Number 8, they don't give people roles to play. And that alone breaks the script most people live by. In everyday life, people unconsciously fall into roles. Some play the victim to get sympathy. Others play the hero to feel important. Some adopt the villain persona to gain power through fear or rebellion. These roles aren't always obvious, but they're everywhere at work, in families, in relationships. It's a quiet performance, and most people expect others to play along. But Sigas, they refuse to participate. They don't chase the role of rescuer when someone plays helpless. They don't bow to the villain's intimidation tactics. And they sure don't hand over emotional control just to make someone feel like a hero. They're not being difficult. They're being real. They see through the roles and the manipulation behind them, and they choose truth over theatrics every time. Picture someone who's constantly in crisis, always looking for someone to save them. Most people either jump in or get guilt-tripped into helping, but a Sigma won't do that. They'll listen, yes, they'll help if it's honest, but they won't feed the drama. And once the victim realizes they can't milk sympathy from the Sigma, frustration sets in. Or take the self-declared hero who wants constant applause for their good deeds. The Sigma sees right through the performance and doesn't offer the expected praise. Suddenly, the hero feels invisible, and it bothers them more than they're willing to admit. People don't just want attention. They want roles to control the emotional atmosphere. And when someone like a Sigma refuses to play along, they disrupt the entire script. That disruption creates discomfort. And when someone can be dragged into the emotional play, they're labeled as cold, distant, or antisocial. But the truth is simpler. Sigas aren't emotionless. They're just unwilling to lie to make people feel better about their games. And in a world addicted to pretending, refusing to play feels like rebellion. Number 9, they're the mirror no one asked for. And that's exactly why people try to break them. Sigas don't walk around pointing fingers or exposing people's secrets. They don't need to. Their very presence does something unsettling. It reflects truth, not the filtered, polished version people present to the world, but the raw, uncomfortable truth they hide even from themselves. You see, most people are running from something. Insecurity, guilt, fear, regret. They bury it under layers of performance, overconfidence, fake kindness, forced ambition. They live for applause, but secretly dread silence because that's when the truth creeps in. Then a Sigma enters the picture. Calm, honest, not chasing attention, not trying to be anything other than real. And suddenly all those buried feelings start bubbling up. It's not something the Sigma says, it's what they don't say. It's the way they live without needing to prove anything. That kind of quiet self-possession triggers people. It makes them uncomfortable in their own skin. Imagine being around someone who's not easily impressed, who's not playing the same validation game, who sees straight through fake smiles and exaggerated stories and stays silent. That silence doesn't feel neutral. It feels exposing. It forces people to wonder, what do they see in me that I'm not admitting? And that reflection hurts. So instead of dealing with it, people project their discomfort onto the Sigma. They call them judgmental, arrogant, emotionless. But what they're really saying is, I can't handle being seen by someone who isn't fooled by me. That's the cost of being a mirror in a world full of masks. Sigas don't set out to provoke. They just live in a way that makes people question their own illusions. And when truth is too loud for someone's ego to ignore, lashing out becomes the only defense. Not because the Sigma did something wrong, but because they existed without pretending. Number 10, they won't react just because you want them to. And that drives certain people insane. Sigas don't give away their emotions like loose change. You can try to poke them, provoke them, bait them into an argument, or throw subtle insults their way, and you'll get nothing but stillness. No explosion, no dramatic clapback, just that unnerving calm that makes you question whether your little performance even registered. But don't mistake that stillness for weakness. It's not that they didn't catch the jab. They did. They just chose not to hand over their power. See, most people are conditioned to respond. If someone disrespects you, you're expected to react, shout back, prove your worth, get revenge, make a scene. That cycle is familiar, and frankly, it's addictive. But Seekers don't play into it. They've mastered the art of pausing, of weighing whether a reaction is even worth their energy. Most of the time, it's not. This makes them dangerous in the eyes of the emotionally chaotic, because people who rely on control, manipulation, or attention feed off reactions. They test boundaries to feel powerful, and when the Sigma doesn't flinch, it leaves them powerless. Imagine someone trying to provoke you at work, throwing passive-aggressive comments your way, hoping to get a rise out of you. The Sigma just nods, maybe even smiles faintly, and keeps working like nothing happened. That quiet refusal to entertain the drama is control. That's dominance without force. It's not about being emotionless. It's about being emotionally disciplined. Seekers don't let others decide what they feel or how they respond. And that level of restraint frustrates people who depend on emotional chaos to keep control. Because when you can't pull someone's strings, you realize you're not in charge. And that realization is what makes them fear the Sigma more than they're willing to admit. Number 11. They make no excuses and tolerate none. And in today's world, that makes them rare and often disliked. Seekers don't buy into the endless loop of justifications people use to stay stuck. They're not moved by sob stories dressed up as reasons. They've lived through enough to know the difference between a real obstacle and a comfortable excuse. So when someone starts blaming the world, other people, bad luck, or not being ready, the Sigma sees right through it. And that doesn't sit well with people who've gotten used to being coddled. Seekers aren't harsh. They're just allergic to fakery. They've done the hard work of facing their own flaws, breaking their own patterns, and calling themselves out when no one else did. That gives them zero patience for people who lie to themselves just to stay comfortable. They don't attack. They don't humiliate. They just tell the truth, even when it stings. Picture someone saying, "I just don't have time to chase my dreams." A Sigma hears that and knows the truth. It's not time that's missing. It's discipline. It's courage. It's sacrifice. And while most people would nod politely, the Sigma might say something like, "You do have time. You just don't want it badly enough." That honesty hits harder than any insult because deep down, the person knows it's true. This is why Seekers get called too blunt or harsh. But what they're really doing is holding up a mirror without sugarcoating the reflection. Not to tear you down, but to wake you up. They're not interested in comfort zones. They're interested in growth. So, if you're lazy lying to yourself or stuck in self-pity, don't expect a Sigma to pat you on the back. Expect them to hand you the truth and expect them to walk away if you ignore it because they'd rather be alone than surrounded by excuses. And that's exactly why they stay sharp. Number 12, they're immune to groupthink. And in a world that worships belonging, that makes them a different kind of dangerous. Seekers don't follow trends. They don't nod along just to keep the peace. And they don't co-sign ideas they don't believe in, no matter how many people are clapping. Their loyalty lies with truth, not with the crowd. That independent thinking sets them apart. But it also puts a target on their back. See, most people are wired to blend in. It's safer, easier. Agreeing with the group gives you a sense of acceptance, even if it means swallowing your doubts or silencing your voice. But Seekers don't trade truth for comfort. If something doesn't sit right with them, they'll stand alone, even if everyone else is celebrating the lie. Imagine a team at work all pretending a failing strategy is fine just to protect their image or avoid conflict. The Sigma won't play along. They'll calmly say this isn't working and break the illusion everyone else was clinging to, not out of rebellion, but out of honesty. And that moment, it rattles people. Because when one person stops pretending, the whole group feels exposed. Seekers don't crave belonging. They crave meaning. So they ask the hard questions. They challenge bad ideas. They sit with discomfort instead of escaping into group think. That kind of independence makes them difficult to manipulate, impossible to predict, and deeply respected by those who value truth. But for those who rely on numbers to feel powerful, the Sigma is a threat, not because they're loud, but because they're unshakably original. They don't need the herd. They are the lone wolf who sees what the pack refuses to. And in a world full of echoes, their silence speaks louder than the crowd's approval ever could. In final words, when you refuse to be controlled, you become a threat to those who only feel powerful when others are small. Being a Sigma isn't about trying to be different. It's about choosing truth in a world that rewards pretense. It's about thinking for yourself when everyone else is following the script. It's about standing alone, not because you're stubborn, but because the direction the world is going doesn't match your values. And that choice comes with a price. People will misunderstand you. Some will envy you. Others will try to break you just to feel in control again. You'll be called arrogant, antisocial, cold, even when your heart is steady and your mind is clear. Why? Because you are not easy to influence. You are not predictable. You are not programmable. But here's what you need to remember. You are not alone in this. You are rare. And rare things always cause discomfort before they're understood. You have depth. You have insight. You have the discipline to choose peace over drama, clarity over noise, and freedom over approval. So if you've ever felt like you don't belong, like you're too honest for polite company, or too independent for the pack good, that means you're awake. That means you're thinking. That means you're leading yourself even when no one claps for it. Keep your head high. Keep your standards sharp. Let the world misunderstand you. You weren't made to fit in. You were made to stand true. And standing true will always make you a target, but it also makes you unforgettable. Stay true to yourself. To all the spicy ladies make life beautiful, thank you for watching and God bless.